Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you, wherever you happen to be right now. This is episode number 10 of the Results Matter podcast. I'm Mike Voorhees, and I help business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals become measurably more successful. Today, I'm going to talk about a company that gets customer experience wrong and what you can do to make sure your customers don't tell stories like the one I'm about to share with you. Let's explore. Hey, a quick ask before we jump in. Please subscribe and share the podcast with others. It'll really help us get this content to more people who could really benefit from it. The Results Matter podcast is available in video on YouTube and, of course, on all the different audio podcast listening platforms. Here we go. So today we're going to talk about one of the hottest business models out there. I'm going to tell you a quick story about a recent experience I had with a company that really gets customer experience wrong. And my goal today is to make sure that friends of the Results Matter podcast aren't inadvertently making some of these same crippling customer experience mistakes. This hot modern business model that I'm referring to is basically being a tech company masquerading as a service business. This business model is pretty simple in concept. You create a big piece of technology on the front end, market the heck out of it, and then have individuals and communities all over the country sign up to do all the work at no real cost to you. It's actually brilliant. And I think many of these are long-term sustainable businesses, at least the ones that can figure out how to get the customer experience right. What these businesses are selling is convenience, and I love convenience. If you make my life easier, I will give you my money. And, judging by how big some of these businesses have become, I'm not the only one willing to pay for convenience. You know, in the transportation world, we're talking about companies like Uber and Lyft. There's grocery shopping and delivery services like Shipt. And when it comes to prepared food delivery, there's Uber Eats, Grubhub, and the company I'm going to tell you a story about today, DoorDash. DoorDash gets the customer experience way wrong. And the business leaders and entrepreneurs who are friends of the Results Matter podcast could make some of these same mistakes if you're not careful, and we definitely don't want that. I mentioned that I love convenience. I'm being serious when I say that if you make my life easier, I will give you my money. And I know I'm not alone when I look at how big and how fast these tech companies, these not really service tech companies, have grown in recent years. They've exploded in popularity because consumers want convenience. We want near instant gratification, and we want what we want right now, without much in the way of commitment. And, in most cases, we're willing to pay a premium for it. I'd actually be embarrassed for you to see how often I've ordered from DoorDash and how much money I've spent on being hungry and lazy at the same time. Sometimes at the office, we've used DoorDash to order for a group of people who are there for a meeting or a training or something like that. Remember, these are tech companies masquerading as service businesses. The technology's great. We can send out a group order link to the whole group. They can pick their own food, and we can place the order with the click of a button. Super simple, and lots of choices when it comes to restaurants to pick from. Last week, we were doing a sales training at the office and ordered exactly as I just described. I believe there were 19 items ordered. After about 45 minutes or so, the delivery guy showed up, the Dasher. With him was 3 of our 19 items. The order was well over $100 plus a tip, and the guy brought us 2 sandwiches and a salad. What's worse is he realized there was a big mistake while he was still in our lobby. But instead of doing something about it, he got in his car and he drove away. He said we'd have to call the restaurant or DoorDash because he was already assigned another order. I'm going to finish the story in a minute, but first a couple things. Now, this guy should be fired on the spot, and DoorDash should be ashamed of a knucklehead like this representing their brand. But a lot of companies have a lot of knuckleheads, and I'm not going to say a company gets customer experience wrong just because of one poorly trained knucklehead or just because of an isolated experience. My problem with this particular experience wasn't even with Mr. Knucklehead, believe it or not. My problem is with DoorDash and their complete disregard for their customers and the customer experience. It's their lack of caring about the paying customer's experience that makes them a crummy company. DoorDash is in the honeymoon period of their industry. So they've likely convinced themselves that the way they're doing business is fine, that it's good enough. But when someone comes along that really does customer experience right, they're going to get crushed, and they'll deserve it. They will have done it to themselves. Their leadership should be credited, in all fairness, for getting them this far, this fast. But their leadership's weakness outside of the tech side of things has become very evident with their explosive growth. Their leadership, while super smart, is also super weak in terms of a well-rounded leadership. I've mentioned how good their technology is a couple times now. On their website or app, they offer a chat feature, which I'm sure gets lots of use, given the customer experience they provide. I also mentioned how I like convenience, so I went ahead and used the chat feature to address my concern. I explained my problem, that only 3 of our 19 items arrived, and that the driver knew about the problem and did nothing, and that I had a room full of hungry people. Whomever I was chatting with responded that the driver showed up early and must have missed me. I proclaimed that they obviously weren't listening. The driver came, we saw him, we talked to him. Then, whomever I was chatting with offered a partial refund of roughly 60% of the price. Now, I'm quite pissed at this point. I responded saying, no, this would not work. Refund all of my money and cancel my monthly subscription too. After waiting a while, they responded saying a refund was processed and abruptly ended the chat. A little while later, I received a survey inquiring about my experience with customer support. I answered that my problem was absolutely not solved, and I gave a brief summary of my latest nightmare experience. You know, that next day, I answered the phone from a number that I didn't recognize. This is rare for me to do, but it was a local number and I took the call. It was a guy from DoorDash following up on my survey remarks. Could it be? Did they actually care enough to reach out and try to make this right? No, not so much. And I swear, folks, I'm not making this next part up. He said he noticed this was a large order and wondered if they should expect more large orders from us in the future. I told the guy that was calling that after this most recent experience, they'll likely never get another order from me ever. Here's the best part, and I'm not making this up. He said, "Why? It looks like you got almost a full refund." He asked if I was going to stop using them just because of some missing items. He sounded surprised. I explained a refund did nothing to help me with a room full of hungry people at the time, and the real problem was the way I was treated as a customer, and it was inexcusable. He said, "Okay, thanks for your feedback," and then he hung up. After mumbling something about my dissatisfaction being very rare to hear, which I doubt, by the way. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask me what he could do to make it right. He didn't ask me for another chance. He did nothing. He didn't care, and neither do the leaders at DoorDash. There's so many customer experience lessons to be learned here. But here's one of the big ones I really want you to think about. DoorDash's only remedy for dealing with a dissatisfied customer is to give a refund. They believe that if they screw up and give you your money back, the problem is solved, and the customer should be happy about it. You know, the price is only a small part of the customer experience, and they're dealing with customers who are paying a premium for convenience. It's a naive business owner or business leader who thinks everything is about price. Wow, you gave me my money back for food I didn't get. How generous of you. Talking about this experience with someone afterwards, I was told that their chat feature is all computerized and that I probably wasn't even talking to a real person. I don't know if that's true or not. In hindsight and replaying the conversation in my head, I believe it's certainly possible. If this is true, This is a very unethical and deceptive way of doing business. It wouldn't surprise me, though. DoorDash's DoorDash's awful leaders are focused on the technology, and they're not giving a second thought to paying customers and our experience. And this will catch up to them. I downloaded a transcript of the chat conversation. If you'd like to read it for yourself, I'll tell you how to get a copy in the show notes. The best of businesses screw up. The best of business leaders make mistakes, and we can all be knuckleheads sometimes and not provide the customer with the experience they deserve. Sometimes we become known for how we address customer concerns, more so than the actual work that we do. Sometimes you're seen in a brighter light for how you fix a problem than if there was no problem at all. I know it sounds silly, but think about it. It's true. Sometimes a refund is necessary. Sometimes it's a nice gesture. Sometimes if you don't deliver, like DoorDash, it's required. But it's not the same as actually caring, okay? It's not the same as genuine empathy. And it's not the same as showing some vulnerability and actually apologizing. It's not the same as asking the customer for an opportunity to make it right. The guy who called me to follow up had a golden opportunity. I didn't want anything for free. And because it was the next day, I wasn't even really pissed anymore. I didn't want a discount. I didn't want anything for free. A much better way he could have handled the call was just to apologize for failing to provide me with a good experience. He could have asked for an opportunity to make it right and what that would take. He could have offered to call and follow up with me after my next order if I would just be so generous as to place another one. But he did none of these things. He wasn't trained to because the culture at their company is obviously not customer focused, and that's a problem that starts in their C-suite and senior leadership. So today's takeaways when it comes to customer experience. Number 1, a refund doesn't automatically fix a customer's bad experience. The monetary element of customer experience is only part of the picture. Number 2, don't deceive your customers. Number 3, show your customers that you care. Show some empathy. Try to make it right. And finally, number 4, do what needs to be done to prevent the same bad experience from happening again. When a customer complains, friends, it's a gift. Look at it like a gift. Treat it like a gift. Be grateful. And what you give back should be caring, empathy, appreciation, and a real commitment to improve. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my story. What else could DoorDash have done differently? How can you use this lesson to improve customer experience in your business? And if you'd like to read a copy of the chat transcript between myself and DoorDash, I'm being serious, I'll share it with you. To learn what not to do, you'll see how to get a copy in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening today to the Results Matter podcast. If you enjoy or find the content useful, would you please subscribe and share the podcast with others? It'll really help us get this content to more people who could really benefit from it. The Results Matter podcast is a production of Voorhees Business Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about additional services, products, and solutions designed to give your business an unfair advantage, you'll find a link to voorheesbusiness.com in the show notes. Be sure to sign up for free business coaching delivered right to your inbox. Friends, thank you so much for listening today to the Results Matter podcast.